Testament in the book of Jeremiah, where God told his people to seek the shalom of the city. And as we already talked about in the introduction today, shalom is a word that we translate into English as peace. But the real definition is much broader and much more significant than our English word peace, because shalom means the goodness. Seek the good of the city. Seek the prosperity or the well-being of the city. And as you gather here today, whatever your role is, whatever your affiliation is, whatever your journey of faith is, together you are seeking the shalom of White Rock and Surrey. Thank you for seeking the shalom of White Rock and Surrey day in and day out, week after week, month after month, year after year. You are making an incredible difference together. As I think about the context as which you're seeking shalom for the city, I'd like to introduce you to maybe an acronym that you already know, but the acronym is VUCA. And it's, let's see if we can make this work. It is not working. The acronym VUCA is VUCA. And that acronym was started by Warren Bennis, a prof at USC in the States in the 80s. And at USC, he recognized as an organizational development consultant that organizations were navigating a VUCA world, beginning to navigate a world of volatility, of uncertainty, of complexity, and of ambiguity. Does that resonate with anybody in this room? What Bennis was coming up with in the 80s, he was really ahead of his time because it didn't fully become popular until 9/11. When 9/11 happened, the U.S. military picked up this term because they recognized that they were in a new normal, a space of volatility where there's unpredictability and chaos, where there's disruptive change. Uncertainty. Not only is the future uncertain, but actually the present is uncertain. Where there's complexity, where it's like we're working a Rubik's Cube trying to solve problems, but you move one side and 2 or 3 other sides change at the same time. And ambiguity, where it's uncertain which way to go. Which path should we take? Or is there even a path? Ambiguity where there are unknowns and there are actually unknown unknowns. This is the new normal that we're navigating around the world. We just listen to the news. Lord have mercy, is my prayer. But we also experience VUCA in our own communities and even in our own homes. So thank you for seeking shalom in a VUCA world. And as a leadership developer, which I've been doing for 20 years, one of my key questions is, what do leaders need? What do leaders need in a VUCA world? And maybe a better question is, what do we need from leaders in a VUCA world? The passage of scripture that I want to point us to is Psalm 78, verse 72. Psalm 78, verse 72 says this: David shepherded them with integrity of heart. With skillful hands, he led them. The 2 pieces there: integrity of heart and skillful hands. We need leaders at all times, but especially in a VUCA time, who have integrity of heart and will lead with skilled hands. My focus this morning isn't going to be on the skilled hands side of things. And we definitely need leaders with skilled hands. We could create a list of what are the skills we need from leaders at a time of VUCA, when the new normal is VUCA. We need collaborators. We need bridge builders. We need agile and adaptive leaders. I'm not going to talk about those skills. What I am going to focus on is the first half of that verse. David shepherded them with integrity of heart. We need, more than ever, leaders who will lead with integrity of heart. There are so many leaders who've been incredibly capable and competent, who have done things that completely go against shalom for their cities, for their communities, for their families, and for themselves. And instead of bringing shalom, they bring actually great harm. And I don't believe that those leaders set out to do that. And it wasn't an issue of being unskilled, because many of those leaders have been incredibly capable and competent. Where it comes back to is integrity of heart. And I want to share with you 4 keys to cultivating and growing integrity of heart. And the first one is humility. We're going to start with a picture here. Some people you may or may not recognize. The first key to cultivating integrity of heart, humility. And the first picture there is, if you can make it out, is Sid the Kid, Sidney Crosby. 3-time Stanley Cup champion, captain of the Pittsburgh Penguins, winner of most awards that you can win in the NHL. 100 points at 18 years old. Perhaps the best or one of the greatest NHL hockey players ever to play the game. The top of his game. An incredible hockey player. This picture, though, is taken in Mount Tremblant, Quebec during a 4-day rest break for the NHL. And Sidney Crosby went to Mount Tremblant to get some rest, but he also took his skates and stick. And at 6 a.m., one of those mornings, Sidney got up, went to the outdoor rink in Mount Tremblant, put on his skates, and started to do drills. Another young man named Guillaume, who's the captain of the Mount Tremblant hockey team, also did drills at 6 a.m. And when he drove up to the rink and he saw a car already parked there, he was surprised because nobody was ever there at 6 a.m. It was just him. And he became even more surprised as he got closer and closer to the rink. And he saw Sidney Crosby skating up and down this rink in Mount Tremblant. His mind was blown that his hockey idol is there at 6 in the morning. And Guillaume spent the next hour helping Sidney Crosby do drills. So what's going on with Sidney Crosby when all his other NHL teammates are enjoying some much-needed rest on the beach somewhere in their 4-day break? Well, Sidney Crosby said this: "When I go into the corners and dig after the puck, it's not coming out well on my backhand. So I knew that during this break I needed to focus in on getting better so I could go back and bring that puck out more cleanly and clearly." So he brought his skates and got Guillaume to help him drill so he could be better. That speaks the word humility to me. That at the top of his game, the top of the class, he's still looking for what could be better, what do I need to work on? And then he's got the ethic to go after it and invite other people's help. And you might say, well, he's getting paid a lot of money, so he better come out of the corner with the puck. He's motivated by money, and I want to point you to the next person, the next picture. That's Lauren Cunningham. Lauren Cunningham, if you know that name, was the founder of YWAM, Youth with a Mission, an organization that grew over the world to impact thousands and thousands of young adults and change their lives so that they would be world changers for the rest of their lives. Lauren Cunningham visited every single country of the world. I don't know how many people can put that in their resume. A friend of mine met Lauren Cunningham and told Lauren Cunningham, "You've been one of my heroes growing up, and now I've met you, and you are incredibly humble." And Lauren Cunningham's response back was this: "There's a lot to be humble about." Humility is a pathway to integrity of heart. The opposite, pride, feeling like we've arrived, like we're better than, like we're entitled to, isn't a pathway to integrity of heart. That's the first key I want to share with you. Humility. What's your backhand? If you're Sidney Crosby, what's your backhand that you need to work on? Who do you need to invite to help you to continue to get better, no matter how good you are? Humility is a pathway to integrity of heart. The second picture I want to introduce you to is this picture of Central Park in New York City. How many of you have been to Central Park in New York City? All right, we've got a few people here. There are 10,000 park benches in Central Park. 10,000. You can do almost anything you can imagine in Central Park. You can play any sport. You can sit and feed the pigeons. You can walk with a friend. You can go to an amusement park. You can go to the theater. You can eat great food. Central Park is this amazing space within the 24/7, 365 hectic hustle and bustle of the city that never sleeps. And back in the 1800s, when the city planners put together Central Park, they overbuilt it. 600 plus acres for a city of 1 million people. But they knew that as New York City grew, the people of New York City would need a place to rest and reflect and refuel and refocus and recreate. So they set aside this huge parkland and then they diligently guarded it. Because can you only imagine how many New York City developers knocked on City Hall's door and said, just one lot. That's all we want is just one lot. And you can see from this zone shot how diligent the city was to protect that space, because they knew that New Yorkers needed Central Park, and that Central Park actually breathed literally fresh air into the city. I was listening to a podcast, and the podcast speaker said this: a lot of leaders are living like New Yorkers without a Central Park. We get so busy, so consumed with doing, that we pave over every spot where we could possibly recreate, refuel, refresh, refocus, relate, and catch our breath. And that level of drivenness, where we just go nonstop, all out, all the time, driven by adrenaline and running on fumes, is not the pathway to integrity of heart. That is a pathway that will actually spin us in the opposite direction. So, for all of you as leaders, you need to cultivate and create a Central Park if you're seeking to lead with integrity of heart. You are a human being, not a human doing. The third key I want to put to you is a phrase that we live out in the Arrow Leadership Program. So in the Arrow Leadership Program, we gather leaders from across the country and invest deeply in them and walk over time with them to see change in their life, that they would become Jesus-centered leaders, leaders with integrity of heart and skillful hands. And one of the key things that we talk about is the community that we're trying to create. A community that is safe, but not soft. In the Arrow Leadership Program, we create a community for leaders that is safe, because leaders, if they're going to be real, there's going to be transformation. If leaders are unable to be real, they need to cover everything over and hide things, then there won't be transformation. So in this safe but not soft community we're trying to create, we want leaders to be safe with their doubts, with their dreams, with their dysfunction even. And in that safety, where they can be real, there's transformation can happen, because we don't want to be soft. We want to be like iron sharpening iron with one another. The picture of the sequoias. I don't know if you've been, has anybody driven their car through the trees, the one big tree in California? I'm not sure you can still do that or not, but it is an amazing experience, because these trees tower 100, 200, 300 feet in the air. And they've been there for hundreds of years, sometimes millennia. And these towering sequoias are breathtaking. And you stand underneath them, and I got to thinking, I wonder how deep the roots are. Because for a building, when you construct a building, usually it's about 10% of the building's height that needs to be underground in order to support that building. And those sequoias despite being potentially 250 feet or more, only have 10 feet of roots under the ground. Why is that? The reason why is because those sequoias actually have a root system that goes out 50 feet horizontally. And those roots intertwine with other sequoias. And in community, those giants hold each other up for hundreds of years, if not millennia. What's that mean for us? It means we need relationships and community that are safe but not soft. All of us need other people and to have people who are close enough to know how we're really doing and close enough to call us when we're off track. Henry Cloud, this quote, "Virtually every emotional and psychological problem from addiction to depression has alienation or emotional isolation at its core or close to it." We need people deeply in our lives. Most Christian leadership is exercised by people who do not know how to develop healthy, intimate relationships and have opted for power and control instead. Many Christian empire builders have been people who are unable to give and receive love. Henry Nouwen. Who's in your life? Who's in your life close enough that you're allowing yourself to be real with them? Isolation is not the path to integrity of heart. Relationships and community that is safe but not soft is the path to integrity of heart. Well, I want to show you one more picture, the fourth key. And this is a picture of me and my friend Evan. This is Evan and I at his 100th birthday party. How many of you have been to a 100th birthday party? A few of you. 100th birthday parties, if you've been, usually start early in the day. You speak loudly, but you don't miss them. They don't come around very often. If you've been to a 100th birthday, you got to show up. And I flew from Vancouver to Pasadena to be at Evan's 100th birthday party. It was Evan's 100th part 3. He had one part for his family, one part for his friends, and this was part 3 for those people he poured his life into. And at my table, there was a Hong Kong investment banker who flew from Hong Kong. There was a guy from NASA. I tried 3 different times to figure out what he did. And I should have taken grade 11 science because I just couldn't figure it out. I met a young guy, 18 years old, named Evan. And I said, are you Evan because of Evan? And he said, yeah, my dad's over there. He's one of the guys that Evan poured into, and my dad wanted to honor him, so he named me after him. And what happened in that room of 60 or 70 of us that came together, some couldn't be there, was the best living celebration of life and the best workshop on impacting others you could ever go to. Because each of us took the microphone, and what happened in the microphone had the same 5 themes. Let me share with you what they were. Evan, you saw me. You took special notice of me. Many people said that. Out of a crowd, Evan, you picked me out and you poured into me. Other people said, Evan, you cared for me with your words, with your time, with your wisdom, with your expertise. You cared for me. Others said, Evan, you've modeled the way. And I mean, here we are at his 100th birthday party. He is finishing well. He's finishing strong. He's still actually pouring into some of the people in that room. He's leading a Bible study at his church. Evan is crossing the finish line well when so many leaders don't. Thank you, Evan, for modeling the way. Other people said, Evan, you've given perspective to me over the years. And I remember calling Evan in my 40s and sharing with him, Evan, do you remember those years in your 40s where it just seemed like there was so much pressure? There's family pressures, a growing family. There's leadership pressures of of leading in this crazy world. And at 95 years old, with a memory sharp as a tack, Evan said to me, "Steve, actually, I don't remember that stuff so much." Which was actually great perspective. Why am I in such a knot about what's right before me? This moment is going to pass. Put me in a retirement home, double my life from now, and I might not even be remembering that stuff. So I asked Evan a follow-up question. I said, "Evan, what would you do differently in your 40s? And he said, "That's easy. I'd love people more." That's perspective. And the last one people would say over and over again in that room, encouragement. "Evan, you're an encourager." And I would get voicemails from Evan. I'd be traveling somewhere, and he'd leave me a voicemail, and the voicemail would be like this: "Steve, sorry I missed you. I just wanted to let you know, remind you that I'm proud of you, I love you, and I'm praying for you every day." You can't hit 7 for a race on that one, right? You got to listen to it again and save it, because all of us need more courage. Amen? I tell you this story about Evan not simply because Evan was a master at developing others, and as leaders, we want to be masters at developing others as well. Those 5 qualities, those 5 practices don't take a PhD. They're accessible. They're inviting. Would you want to follow somebody who sees you, cares about you, models the way themselves, gives you perspective, and lavishly encourages you? Is that somebody you want to follow? That's the kind of leaders we need to be. But I share this story with you because of Evan's posture. Evan's posture was not to use his position, his power, or his privilege for himself. His posture was to serve others. When our posture becomes about ourselves and our personal gain, what's in it for us? How can I leverage this to my best outcome for me? It's very easy to drift away from being a leader of integrity of heart. Our posture to be a leader of integrity of heart needs to be one of serving others, of seeking shalom for others. So, 4 keys to being a leader with integrity of heart. And somebody here is saying, "Steve, this is a prayer breakfast. You should talk about Jesus at some point." Here we go, all right? Here we go. Jesus, a leader of integrity of heart and skillful hands, navigating a VUCA world in the 1st century. A leader who, with skillful hands, stirred and poured into a few, who became a many, who multiplied and carried on the mission for 2 millennia. But Jesus wasn't just a leader with skillful hands. Jesus is a leader with integrity of heart. And you can go through this list, and he checks the boxes. He checks the boxes of humility. Every single room that Jesus ever went into, he was the smartest guy, the most powerful guy, and the holiest guy in the room. And I don't know if you've been in rooms with really smart people or really powerful people, you usually leave the room feeling less than. People didn't leave the room feeling less than with Jesus. They felt built up. Jesus had incredible humility. He took care of himself. He had rhythms where he fully engaged, and then he pulled back, rested and prayed and refocused, and then fully engaged again. Dallas Willard was asked to describe Jesus in a word. And Dallas Willard's word was this: relaxed. Jesus was relaxed. And you go, where did you get that from? And Dallas Willard, theologian, prof, he said, with a whole world to help, Jesus still had time for naps, fishing, and parties. Jesus was relaxed. He was a human being. Jesus lived in safe but not soft community. He poured into the 3, the 12, the 72, and he lived, loved, served, and suffered in community, even when the community wasn't perfect, and there's no perfect community. And Jesus served. Jesus served. Like Evan, he saw people. He saw Zacchaeus up in a tree. He cared for people. Ultimately, at the cost of his life. He modeled the way from start to finish, integrity and holiness. Perspective. He gave it all the time. To people who thought they knew everything about God, Jesus turned their worlds and their perspective upside down. And Jesus was an encourager. Ask Peter who his greatest encourager was. And Peter would say, my greatest encourager was the one who I denied 3 times before the rooster crowed. Jesus was my greatest encourager. Jesus said himself, the Son of Man doesn't come to serve, doesn't come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. Jesus' posture was to serve, to seek shalom for individuals and for the world. He's our model. Is there any better model to follow? Well, I want to say thank you. This is where I started. Thank you, leaders, White Rock and Surrey, for gathering together today, but for leaving this place in a few moments to seek the shalom of this city, of this community, of this province, and the world around us. As you do that in a VUCA world, may you do so with skillful hands, but may you also do so with integrity of heart, knowing that Jesus is your greatest cheerleader. Wherever you are on the faith journey, there's nobody who wants you to succeed more than he does. Thank you for doing what you do. It's been a privilege to be with you. Thank you.